giving me the, okay, yes, it's being live streamed, it's preparing, so let's hit record. All right, remember that we don't know quite on, I'll let you know when it says we're on YouTube.
Okay, I'm pulling up the YouTube just to have it in the background, but I'll mute it.
All right, it looks like we're there. All right, everybody, let me hit record is on. All right, welcome to Word Salad Live. If somebody could please let me know that they hear us, which won't be me, there's no one in the room yet because we didn't announce anything, but hopefully as soon as it hits somebody's stream, we'll get an acknowledgement that we are live and we can get going with the meaningful conversation. But in the meantime, Dani, good morning. It's Sunday morning.
It really is Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's Sunday. Oh yeah, that's right. That's what Nancy Pelosi said when she blessed us with our now permanent greeting niceties, right? Not just for you, for lots of people, right? That's the way that I interact with them. So let's hope that somebody, we have 3 people here now, so it's someone other than just you and I. If somebody can let us know, there's Paul Farmer, he can hear us. All right, we're ready to go. Thanks. All right, welcome to Word Salad Live Sunday morning. This is where we are going to debut our new sub-series called Our Democracy. Because if we don't make a separate sub-series, then this topic threatens to overtake everything else we do. And we don't want that. And also, both of us cannot resist the temptation to offer our thoughts on all of the nonsense going on. So for the time being, Word Salad will probably be presenting our democracy. And I have already recruited somebody to make a smashing opening clip for us that is going to be like, wonderful. And then now I'm going to put the same pressure on you publicly that I put on him to make sure he said yes. Like, I think we need a new Sadie. And I think on the word salad, all you have to do, you just have to make an adjustment. Somebody pouring some dressing with a bottle that says Our Democracy all over it.
Add it to the to-do list.
But this way you don't have to make a whole new salad. You can use the same salad and just add to it for this period of time that we're offering our comments.
Who's pouring the salad? Or who's pouring the dressing?
I think like the puppet strings in the back that are coming from the green room where the lizards sit or whatever it is. Like,
is it like a 3-pronged lizard claw salad bottle?
I think so.
Okay.
So, okay. So this is where I'm coming to this from, because, I felt you and I were very genuine in our desire to move away from talking about some of this stuff. And it was almost like when we said we weren't going to talk about it anymore, it triggered like a new level of insanity that has led me, I started slowly creeping in this direction. But as I was listening to RFK on Joe Rogan the other day, because I can't stop. I'm just like, I'm hopelessly addicted to some form of this torture. I got to the place where I decided that the entire world exists just to troll you and I.
I'm trying to think, so at least in our dimension, that is for, I got so clear on this after you said it. And it's like, well, we're all creating our realities. So in a dimensional level or layer, 100% that is happening.
All right. So generally, I try to resist that kind of thinking, but I had fun exploring that idea. And what it led me to was that it must be 1983. Therefore, I am 8 and you were 10. And both of us have been naughty in the way that we usually are, which is talking back. And we've been sent down to the dungeon at GO for an extra round of concentration tapes. And just so everyone understands, the dungeon is full of black mold there. So if you haven't seen Archive 81, go watch that. But it was during this extra session of concentration tapes that Dani and I entered the highest realms of the gateway experience and became experts at that. And we're still there in the dungeon having the ultimate gateway experience in which we have not hallucinated, but traveled into a realm and created it for all of everyone else who seems to be experiencing with us. This hallucination we call reality. in which it exists only to troll you and I, and one day we will wake up, rejoin the group, and go for another round of abuse from friends.
Well, and I just want to be clear, one of the tapes that it is burned into my brain that we were forced to listen to in the dungeon of our gym was concentration and visualization. Correct. So I think this ties into a lot of the stories that we paint, and then we see them responding and giving life. So I look forward to, you know, as we continue to start visualizing different reality constructs and seeing the shills pick up on those.
Yes. So there does seem to be, and I say this with like all like, you know, I'm making fun of myself here when I say this. Like our commentary does seem to dictate the behavior of some of these publications. Right? Like I get lots of interesting emails. I got one this week saying that like Joe Rogan opened his comedy thing that someone went to see with the same disclaimer I make about my channel and whatnot, right? And so like I say this with my tongue in my cheek, right? I mostly think that I'm a ridiculous person, and you know, I'm just basically calling things as I see them. But I felt it was important to, just like we had the container of the dungeon for you and I to have this hallucination in, this show will serve as the container for Dani and I's comments about the election insanity.
We also, in our brief pre-show, we didn't mention the Glenn Greenwald piece, which might be wise to bring up. And I just want to take a moment to speak to Glenn, Joe, Heather, like whoever's watching us. Like, we get that other people are sending you links or you're coming in through the back end. And it would be cool if you would still donate to us. Like, if you're not like officially on our patron list, that's fine. And like Glenn specifically, like, come on, let's just be in integrity and just, you know, send us donations or something.
So I don't know that it exactly works this way. Like, I'm sure that there's lots of people who work for these people that do this, but I also think that it's just, we're the first monkeys of the 100th monkey of an idea. When an idea is time, it's time to come, like, right, kind of thing. And a lot of people, like, I still think that like my best contribution in whatever this is that we do is that like I'm willing to say the thing that will make me look crazy before everyone else is willing to. I don't know that I'm the first one to think of it, right? But I'm the first one to like think of it and be like, yeah, I'm just going to say it. I don't need to, you know, like, I don't think of it first, but when I think of it, I'm willing to say it, right? And then you're like scorched earth. So like once you've decided you're going to say it, you're like running around saying it. And
it's not a decision. Like once I see it, it's coming out of my mouth. And then it's right. 10 seconds later where I'm like, should I have said that out loud?
Right. So, you know, so, but I like the way that you couched the whole thing. So, okay. So where do you want to start? You and I have both, I like, you know, I've been keeping my eye on this RFK thing. And the main reason that I really keep my eye on it is because I'm going to be honest with you. I did not see it coming, right? Like I did not, like I was kind of surprised when when suddenly we were like a week before he announced there was all this talk that he was going to do that. Like, I don't know why I didn't see that. I don't know, like, because though we've offered criticisms of that sort of realm, I think politically, you and I had our eyes around some other people who had been earlier cast in that position. And I just had thought of them as separate things. So I was kind of taken off guard. And so like my analytical eyes had been looking at him for one reason in one way, but not that reason. So with the shift in perspective, I started looking for a different set of things to sort of analyze. And, you know, for me, again, I'm going to come at this from the place of like, and I actually think that that is why this is going to be such an effective operation that they're running here, is because I think that like a lot of these people, like at least the ones that are being pushed front and center, not the lizards in the green room pulling the strings, like that they are very genuine in their beliefs, and that they, you know, that they, and to the extent that they ever offer something that is not their genuine belief, they believe that that is a calculated decision to overlook something that bothers them in service of whatever they think is more important, which I probably disagree with, right? But that there is, you know, even if it's just better acting skills on their part, right? Like, in order for me to not turn into that, whatever it was that we were turning into before we said we weren't doing it anymore, I have to come from that place. And I come from that place largely from the awareness that someone who is or very nearly resembles someone that is genuine is far more effective than someone who is like obviously not. And that's why these people have been chosen on some level. And it's probably a mixed bag in terms of the reality of that, right? So where do you have anything to say before we start about that?
Yes, I do. So I think I agree with you. Like, I feel like where in the past, and I'll just speak for myself, may have overstepped is assuming negative intention. The reality is I have no idea if these people who are playing out the op know the roles that they're playing are genuine or not, because I don't know them. What I think is important to the RFK thing is for us to just point out the markers of the op so we can be aware and start to look at it with a critical eye. And again, not to tear anyone down, but if someone, you know, especially this election, I mean, they're all whatever they are and they're shams, and I've given up voting and whatnot, but like, because critical discourse has been stifled, it's not to like destroy RFK's chances of winning, it's to invite the questions and the dialogue that are being squelched even by the alt media, because now it's like this kind of homogenized, we all must support XYZ. So for me, it's just like, let's unpack some of the questionable things being said. Let's unpack some of the telltale signs of the op. And just expand the conversation so it could be a lot more honest and real.
Okay, so which piece? So we've watched some pieces that we have, some things that we've both looked at and some things that each one of us have looked at individually or like a little overlap. What piece would you like to start with? And then we'll kind of hit on as many as we can. This is going to be a fairly short live stream today because Dani has her workshop later today.
There's still time to register for if you guys want in.
Yeah, maybe you can include like a bonus zinger for somebody here at the end if they want to hop on last minute, right? So this is going to be short. We're going to just go and then maybe just save like 5 minutes at the end. We're going to be off by 12:30 Central. Maybe we'll save 5 minutes at the end for questions and comments. So thinking about them if you have them. So what piece would you like to start with? Do you want to start with the Glenn piece? Because I feel like that almost was the, like, if we're going in time in order time wise, that was like probably the one furthest back and then move forward. I think that's right.
Yeah, I think the Glenn yes, I think the Glenn piece is important. I think, and I'm happy to start there. Yeah, I mean, the one that I really want to focus on, and I don't think we're going to have time here today. I think the Aubrey Charles is the most interesting, but yeah, let's start with Glenn. And I do think it's important to touch on Joe just because it's getting all this attention. And I think the Joe thing is what makes it super clear that like none of this is organic.
Let's go Glenn, Twitter Spaces, Joe. And then if you have some things to say about, then we can kind of start to touch on the Aubrey Charles Eisenstein piece and then maybe further exploration of that later.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, so I think actually so far, RFK was on Glenn Greenwald's System Update podcast on Rumble, like about a week and a half or 2 weeks after the whole debacle with Roger Waters and then the rabbi and all of that kind of stuff.
And after you and I talked about it.
And after we talked about it, right? I feel like Glenn has done the best. There was like one other person who went to like some campaign stop of RFK's and pressed him a little bit. And he gave a very unsatisfying answer, but I feel like Glenn has given the, like he gave him a broad interview. They talked about a lot of different things. And as Glenn was exactly Glenn, I think he gave a bigger pushback so far than anybody has given to some of the problems around RFK. And I actually do feel like he extracted sort of one concession from RFK around that. And that was he pressed him on the things that he stated about Roger Waters and the things that he stated about Israel and Palestine and why he supports Israel and whatnot. And I feel like mostly it was a lot of canned answers, right? That, like, in my opinion, imply that two things: imply that he's been talked to probably for most of his life, but certainly recently got a talking to. And then B, it served to confirm the title of this subseries about, like, there is so much of this obsession and this focus on not on both democracy and our democracy, as if this is something we all share the same love and passion for, is like becoming the new excuse for all kinds of like crazy shit, right?
No, I don't think it's just our love and passion for. I think the conflation of democracy with constitutional republic and the deliberate pairing of our democracy is to program the people into thinking that their participation matters, that their votes matter, that they have something to do with this. And ultimately, this will tie in to what happened on the Aubrey Charles. But I think that's going in to get people to think that they have some sort of ownership in this, or that their perspectives are valued by their elected leaders, which is such a joke at this point.
So I'll have some more things to say about the democracy and the Constitution stuff when we talk about the Twitter Spaces piece. But basically I feel like when I say that this was the strongest defense he offered, I don't mean that I think it's strong. I mean, the thing that he was like most emphatic about, right, was that we must protect Israel because it's the only democracy in the Middle East, and the democracies have no history of going to war with each other. It was like a very interesting, like, I hadn't heard him say it quite this way before, or really anyone else.
It was a smart spin. Like, it was a pattern interrupter spin that I could see would work.
Right. And then I felt like Glenn so RFK did demonstrate, he really listened to some of the things Glenn said, and he didn't just like sort of evade or obfuscate in the same way that most politicians normally do with this kind of thing. But I think one of the smart tactics, and Glenn is a lawyer, so when one angle isn't working, you find another one. He did ask for an explanation as to why we are continuing to send so much money to Israel, even though they enjoy a better lifestyle than many of the Americans whose taxes are going to do all of that stuff. And he did seem to extract from RFK an acknowledgement that maybe that wasn't right and that needed to be looked at. So I thought that was good, but so far that's been the most aggressive pushback he's gotten, and the only person who's extracted any kind of like, well, maybe you're right, or I don't know about this topic. And he also did say that it is wrong when people who question Israeli policy are called anti-Semites.
So I think that's the key, because and I appreciate Glenn pushing him on it. And he said that was why he took the tweet down, because of this conflation of anti-Semitism with not supporting Israel. But what it indicated to me, and this is an ongoing list, he keeps emphasizing and demonstrating this, it's that he's easily bullied by groupthink, and he's not willing to stand up to it. So in the face of like mass mind control over buying in to Israeli pushback with anti-Semitism, he's not willing to stand in the truth of that. What he demonstrated is that he will kowtow to weaponized language, to propaganda, and to groupthink, that he will defer to that.
Right. Like, he'll acknowledge to Glenn in the conversation, which someone would have to dig through to find the part, that it's wrong when they do that. but he took the tweet down instead of leaving it up as his, like he could have just made another tweet that said, I disagree with Roger Waters, but I agree with his white right to say it. And just questioning this doesn't make someone that. He didn't do that. And the other thing, he's not demonstrating consistency in deleting when someone says something that he disagrees with, even if they say other things, because he didn't delete the tweet from the rabbi who accused a Palestinian of killing his uncle, right? He doesn't think that. He thinks it was the CIA. So if you have to take down a tweet when someone says one thing that you disagree with, even if you agree with all of the other stuff, there's a lack of consistency of application in having his ideas taken out of context or whatever it is, right? And so that was demonstrated there. So I think it was good. So he did get him to say it's not right to conflate those two things. And he did get him to say that he would consider, like I thought the tack that Glenn took, where he was like, why are you against sending funds to Ukraine, but not against sending funds? Like Glenn is not for sending funds to Ukraine, but he was doing the lawyer thing of trying to draw this equivalency, right? And it extracted this thing from him where at least he did stay in the character of, I'm willing to think about something and change my mind. I'll have to take a look at that. I would like to have seen every other person who interviewed him after that jump in on that and start to have some more debate about that.
But I think the fact that they haven't is showing us how like strategized and controlled these media appearances are. And for me, what it demonstrated, because I want to be honest, there's still an aspect of me, I'm not bought into like the voting or whatnot. But like I would love for RFK Jr. to be everything he presents itself. So I'm questioning my own critiques at the same time. But in saying, well, I took it down because of the conflation of, Israeli criticism with anti-Semitism, he's showing us that he's allowing himself to be bullied by globalism, by Maoism. So that doesn't give me confidence in him as a leader and as someone who stands by his own convictions. Like that's what it was. So he's showing us that he betrayed his own convictions and his own integrity to please the mind control.
He's a powerful enough figure that by leaving it up and just making another comment about it, he could have started to dissolve the idea that being against Israeli foreign policy or even Israeli domestic policy is somehow representative of anti-Semitism, but he didn't. He just went for getting out of the immediate discomfort of that confusion. And so, yeah, so that was that. But I recommend people go watch the interview with RFK and Glenn Greenwald. Like I have Glenn Greenwald in a very particular place in my mind in terms of what I think he occupies. And so like, when I analyze politics at this point, because I'm not participating in I'm not participating in our democracy, I'm just offering my analysis. And I feel like Laura and I will talk about this stuff and she'll be like, why don't you go into politics? Why do you go into politics? And I'm like, because if I went into it, then I would lose the bird's eye view to be able to see what's going on. It's my disassociation and the fact that I really don't care that allows me to see. And the moment you get closer to it, like everything, it's like, like when you're far away from the mirror, it looks a lot different than when you get close to the mirror and whatever it is, right? So, the way I see him now, like I do think he's a fairly consistent character, and I don't see him doing things that are completely like out of step with what he says he believes, even though I personally don't understand how he can have such a good aggressive critique of certain things and then still believe.
Are you talking about Glenn Greenwald or RFK?
Glenn Greenwald.
Okay.
Right. And so like once you understand where to put Glenn Greenwald, I actually think he's a reasonably reliable source of information. You just have to kind of, I don't want to say accept his limitations because I think he's very bright, but like he has a very particular worldview. And within that worldview, there's no sacred cows. He aggressively offers criticism, but it is somewhat confusing to the system that he knows the things he knows and still believes some of the other things that he believes. And I don't know what that is, right? I don't know, like, it's kind of like another version of like the Jimmy Dore thing, right? Who, like, no matter what kind of crazy shit the government does, he still wants Medicare for all,
Well,
right?
I feel like we all have our blind spots, and we're all, everyone's susceptible
Yes.
to mind control. Glenn has had TDS for a while from my perspective. So who knows? But just in terms of moving us along, since we have 29 minutes left, which piece do we want to tackle next?
So let's go to the Twitter Spaces. I'm just trying to stay in chronological order of when they happened, and it took me a while to find
Rogan
it.
happened before Twitter, or are you talking Twitter Spaces with Elon?
Twitter Spaces with Elon, when RFK was on with Elon.
Okay.
So it happened, like, I watched it after, but it happened before. It took me a while to find it in its complete thing, but somebody posted it on YouTube, just the audio, so I was able to listen to most of it. I didn't listen to I did listen to the whole thing. Never mind, I did finish it yesterday. So the couple of things, starting at about 23 minutes in, for about the next 20 minutes, I was very disturbed. Like, I noticed that, like, all of these people who have been placed in positions of importance in terms of, like, determining directions of our reality, like, they're not, like, it's hard to listen to them speak. Like, Elon Musk is one of the most inarticulate people I've ever heard. Like, he has a few moments in there that were almost like Joe Biden-esque in terms of the difficulty spitting out a sentence. And, like, I don't know if it's just that him being a robot was showing itself, or if it was just really, this is not something he's used to having to talk about. And so when you're thinking about something in your own mind, it's different than when you're trying to talk about it. And he has a set of issues that he feels somewhat comfortable talking about, and then another set that not so much. But it was very weird when I was listening to this, I was like, this person has a lot of power, and a lot of people, in my opinion, wrongly, have placed a lot of hope and faith and whatever in belief in him. And the fact that it took him a minute to burp out a sentence that, like, should fly out of the mouth, like, was kind of disturbing. And then right after there's this segment where Michael Shellenberger comes in and is having trouble with his technology. And so, like, basically makes his statement or opening statement 3 different times in 3 different ways. But it was like absolute, like, glowing praise for RFK. And it was like the fact that this person in the course of 2 minutes has this many ways to suck up to, like, whatever is going on here, like, was weirdly disturbing. And then Tulsi Gabbard comes in. Go ahead.
Can we pause a sec? Just because I'm just tracking our time and looking at, like, it's probably going to be best for us to fold everything in. Shellenberger, I just want to take a moment to talk about Shellenberger's place in this, and how, like, everyone on the SFI Consilience Lifeboat Trifecta payroll, they're all coming in with this exaggerated praise where, like, the sun rises and sets on RFK Jr.'s ass and he does nothing wrong and he's perfection incarnate. But notice with Shellenberger, because you and I first honed in on him when he did that Dark Horse with Brett, the, like, low rent, and how, and I mean no disrespect, but he does seem quite limited in his understanding of how this reality works, how the various ops work. And we were wondering, several shows ago, like, why he got pulled into the Twitter files. So I think, as I'm seeing this, and he was mentioned in Joe Rogan as well, that, like, they gave him the Twitter files to give him some legitimacy. Right, as this, like, rogue reporter who's going to fight for truth. Now we see him shilling for the UFO op in a big way, and he keeps coming up and he keeps being mentioned in this RFK unfolding that we see. So I just wanted to point that out.
I think that they intentionally pulled him into the Twitter files to equate him in terms of legitimacy with Matt Taibbi, who would never have any interest in being in politics.
Correct.
Right? So you have him sitting up there next to him in Congress. Michael Shellenberger is a completely different, more manipulative, easily manipulated person with a lower intellect, in my opinion, and but also like a lower intellect, but more confident in his intellect than Matt Taibbi. Like part of what makes Matt Taibbi really good at what he does is he questions even his own assumptions about things. Like he's always double, like he was rechecking his stories before he went to Congress to testify and all this kind of stuff, right?
Correct.
So no, Shellenberger, I mean, the name actually suits him perfectly, right? But
I don't think that's an accident. If
Yeah,
we talk about the crafting of this op, that's not an accident.
Correct. He's the exact kind of character that you want in there, right? So, but listening to him do 3 different glowing introductory sentences because he thought, I don't know if he thought people didn't hear the one before, but it sounded like he was practicing his monologue and like, you know, gave 3 different versions of it.
Right.
Then Tulsi comes in, right? And offers like very little information, but she actually sounds good when she's speaking, right? And she sounds like, you know, it's almost too polished. It's like a better sounding Siri kind of thing, right? So there was like basically like RFK may say some intelligent things, but it's hard to listen to him talk. And then we have Elon Musk who basically can't talk. And then we have Michael Shellenberger worrying, getting that he says it just right. And then Tulsi comes in and sounds like the polished, whatever we're considering her to be that she is. But I looked at this little council and David Sachs, who I've talked about before on this show, was hosting the debate, right? And so I'm like, this is going to be the inner circle around him. I'm sure that Shellenberger and Tulsi Gabbard will have some type of role in the cabinet or the administration or something like that, right? And the bootlicking that RFK did of Elon Musk and Twitter and whatnot, and not just that, but also coupled with that, I'm not going to be mad at Facebook, or he called it Meta, even though they haven't been as good on free speech as Twitter, because I think now is a time for healing. And they've been nice to me since they reinstated my stuff on Instagram and all this kind of stuff. Was like, we're already seeing there's so many concessions that can be made under the guise of now that is a time for healing, where like healing is kind of struggle and painful. Like, sure, like once we've healed, sometimes we have to put a grievance away, but like that process hasn't happened yet to already be doing that. It's a time to like, right, type of thing. So
well,
that,
you know what that speaks to? Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt, but was it last year when was it the Atlantic or New Yorker where it's like, let's just let bygones be bygones, we were wrong? And it was like everyone who had been pushing for forced vax and forced lollipop and apartheid was like, oh, our bad, let's just let bygones be bygones. I feel like this is an extension of that, because it really is, you know, he is running for the Democratic ticket. So that's where he's going. As far as the bootlicking, that's his signature style. Like the way he did it with Joe, with this like prepared, beautifully written spiel, comparing him to JFK and really putting them on the same level. That's one of his techniques. And it's so over the top. And I also think that they're really leading with this, how agreeable he is and how he's so willing to give people the benefit, because he's really up against Trump. And Trump's so the opposite. I think they're trying to play in, you know, to how nice he is and how generous he is in forgiving people who, you know.
It would be a return to diplomacy. It would be a return to diplomacy, right? They're conflating like agreeableness with diplomacy, right? Or something like that. I think that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the Twitter spaces. There's not my prop as we go along in this, there's less and less new things being offered by RFK. I'm just seeing him tell the same stories often over and over, repackaging them. It's like somebody like that now that he has a committee around him of Charles Eisenstein and Dennis Kucinich and whatever, like there seems to be some like, okay, this is a good story for this person or for that. And we're just starting to see it arranged into different ways and less sort of new things being offered. And that was definitely present here. And I think he did it just a little bit before he did the thing with Joe. So now let's move on to the 3.5-hour monologue he did on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Right. And I was remembering how offline you said to me that you hadn't seen Joe allow someone such an indulgent monologue. And I remembered he did the exact same thing with Shellenberger, actually. He gave Shellenberger that same leeway to just talk about whatever we wanted to talk about, not quite as long.
I think Joe said more words during the Shellenberger interview, and at a certain point did push back. But he let him talk quite a bit, but he did push a little bit. He did challenge Shellenberger on a few things around nuclear or around like the issue with like unhoused people and what should be done about it, because Shellenberger is running for governor. So he did push back a little bit more there. But when the Joe Rogan thing, what it felt like to me, and I know this is like most people are going to be okay with this, is that on a lot of these larger platforms like the ABC where they censored him, or Breaking Points where Crystal didn't let him talk after she asked him the question, like, okay, I'm just going to let you speak and I'm not going to interrupt you until you're done. So like it was satisfying some like requirement for from the universe or something, that this man be allowed to speak uninterrupted. But it didn't feel like an interview. It just felt like I'm offering my show for you here to make your presentation.
Right.
And it also, like, early on in the thing, RFK said he didn't want to talk about lollipops very much.
It's all he talked about.
I think they talked about, for 20 minutes at the end, they talked about something else.
Ukraine.
But right, the Ukraine or his uncle or his father or whatever. But Joe, who's had both Roger Waters on his show and Abby Martin is one of his friends, who certainly has informed him a lot about the problems with the Israel-Palestine issue. He spoke for 3.5 hours and was not asked one question about that controversy on the one that's going to be the most watched, right? And so, and then in the aftermath of the Joe Rogan interview, a controversy popped up concerning debate that made me start to have some new ideas about what's going on here. But I'm gonna let you offer what you want to say about this first. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's slow it down a little bit. Because I think, before Rogan, he did Peterson, which has since been taken down. But RFK Jr. is claiming that he's doing podcasts because the mainstream media won't let him on, and that very well may be true, but he's claiming like he's this independent rogue, very similar to what we've heard from Brett and Heather about because of their lab leak theories and whatnot. But just look at the players and the associations, as well as the revisionist history, because on that interview that Peterson did with RFK Jr., all of a sudden, Jordan Peterson was very critical of the lollipops and how they were rolled out, again, demanding that we forget that he said that Israel was doing a great job with their forced lollipop program. So we just have to look at like the shows that he is going on, whose praises are being sung and whatnot. For me, I think Joe Rogan, I don't know how he's controlled. I'm not really behind the scenes, but I remember the Shellenberger differently. I remember Shellenberger just going, and it felt like Joe got a call of like, all right, one of these people is on, just back off and let them do their thing, which is exactly what RFK's Jr.'s interview was. There was no pushing on anything. The way I see this being set up is that RFK Jr. is going to get the credit for blowing the lid off of the lollipops and like freeing people from that enslavement construct. And that will be the Trojan horse to allow him to come in with the climate crisis enslavement plan, which has been there.
I agree.
And it's not to discount his great work on the lollipops and with his book and whatnot. But again, and I would really like for you and I to do a show on this, is really explaining how people who are controlled, whether they know it or not, will speak very valuable truths. And I think that's where people get confused, like as though we're discounting all the great work that he's done on the lollipop thing, but that it's not necessarily leading to something else more nefarious. So the things that I thought were interesting, like here are the things that I thought were most notable on Joe, and I've heard this before, is that RFK Jr. has pinpointed Biden as the downfall and the pivot point of the Democratic Party. He's saying that's when they became warmongers, that's when they became the party of censorship. And to me, that is clearly signaling that he is being puppeted by the same people Biden's being puppeted by, which is the Obama camp and whoever is behind that. Because to call out Biden and to not call out Obama, to not call out what happened under Clinton as problems leading to the degradation of the Democratic Party is intellectually dishonest. And the fact that I've heard him say this, not just on Joe Rogan, is very eyebrow raising. And also the fact that someone who's so careful with his speech doesn't have a problem pinning the blame on Biden, right? Whereas, because he's very careful with that. And you know, towards the end of that interview, he does this like beautifully disguised takedown of Trump with all the xenophobia and racism and like those tropes, which when you look at the things that Trump says, taken out of context, paint him as this hateful racist. But when we look at things in context, yes, he's sloppy. Yes, he's arrogant. Yes, he's probably an asshole. They don't, when looked at in context, I don't see him pushing racism or white nationalism, but RFK did allege that and put that in there. So to me, that's very eyebrow raising that he continues to pinpoint Biden as the downfall of the Democratic Party. I think it was interesting that he said he won't let his wife read his Fauci book because he thinks it will upset her worldview too much. And I'm like, wait a minute, you won't go on Alex Jones because your wife won't let you. Right. You and she hosted a party where guests were required to show proof of lollipop because your wife made you, which to me begs the question, does he have the lollipop? Because if his wife wouldn't let anyone at their party unless they had proof of lollipopping, then where is RFK Jr. in this? But it was interesting, like, what kind of shadowy game are you playing in your marriage, which is really none of our business, except that it seems like she pulls a lot of strings as far as your political life. And then the consistent mention of his son fighting in Ukraine for me is getting very old. I've seen some pushback from that on the web that's questioning whether or not that's happening, but that seems to, like, that's just straight up virtue signaling, like that has to find its way into every conversation. And then the big piece for you and me is the mention of the Weinsteins in his like super flowery, I mean, it goes beyond praise of Joe. Like, he was really elevating him.
That was the moment when I decided that the world existed only to troll us. Of all the thousands of guests he's had on, those were the ones he offered the most glowing praise for.
1,000%. But here's the thing. It's like, so he had this like, and I think that whole thing was scripted, that whole show. But that came in elevating Joe to this like superhuman status. And the reason was because of bringing people on like the Weinsteins. But it was also very clear that RFK Jr. had never watched the Joe Rogan show because he couldn't get Jamie's name right even one time. And after he asked Joe during the show, what is this person's name? He still got it wrong every time. So these are some of my issues.
He's busy worrying about remembering his lines, so he's not actually taking in the information that other people are saying. We've all experienced that. It's happened to all of us before, right?
Totally.
When you're thinking about what you're supposed to say next, you're not actually listening to what the person talking to you is saying. And I'm guilty of this as much as anyone else, but that's what we were looking at. Yes. Okay, a couple of things. So I agree with pretty much almost all of your analysis there. I agree with you that like there's not what you said about, okay, he's going to blow the truth off the lollipop thing. There's really not a debate about that anymore. So it's safe for him to do that because already, like within the papers of the companies that created them and the agencies that promoted them, they've already acknowledged even though they continue promoting them, they've acknowledged all the things that people have known to be true. So that debate,
but the mainstream media
has not. But in reality, the
that
debate
stuff.
has been won.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
And so letting everybody think that that is the debate takes them away from what the debate here really should be. And I'm going to get to that. I want to talk about the Peter Hotez thing in just a second, but I just want to comment on the rest of what you said. And I cannot remember all of the things that you said, but I agree it's disturbing the extent to which he's sort of controlled by his marriage on some level and whatnot. I mean, all of us on some level end up having people in our life that we're in close relationships to that affect this. But the fact that he's even really willing to say that publicly and use it as an excuse is really weird.
It's really weird.
Oh, the thing I know what I mostly wanted to say, what you said about Biden, he in almost every interview talks about the fact that he's friends with the Bidens, that his family is friends with them, and that the one problem he has with him is that he's always been a warmonger. He always votes for more war. You're right. It completely removes responsibility of Obama and Clinton and whatever. But think about this. One of the things we don't hear about during the Biden administration is drone warfare, which was the big thing that Obama brought forward and what Tulsi Gabbard is still for. She is completely 100% for drone warfare. And so Biden is not about that. Biden's been about NATO and invasions and this other stuff. So if we can make him the warmonger, it also kind of goes to this idea that the drone type thing is something, it's much more civilized. We don't want to do this other thing. We don't want to incur upon other people's sovereignty or whatever. But if we just shoot them with video game darts, which is what my Secretary of Defense or State or whoever Tulsi is going to be in there is going to be the new drone queen, right? Or whatever. So I think it's setting the stage for some of that.
I feel like it solidifies your theory that he is the establishment DNC candidate.
He's the establishment. By the end of all, and it's the best thing because there's this weird idea in American culture and whatever that the left is the underdog. It's even right. And maybe right now they're having their moment of controlling thing, but left-wing activists always think they're more censored than right-wing activists, all this kind of stuff. Right. So it's going to appear that this has been a victory for the people, that that sort of the underdog, the grassroots, this, I was talking about this with Mitch, the Oregon donor this week, and the show won't be out for a few weeks, but he plugs the most holes, right? He offers he kind of offers a little something from the buffet table for almost everyone, even people who disagree with him about almost everything else, be but I like him on the climate, right? And the climate is going to be the new op. It was the lollipop joy operation was really setting the stage for to be able to do things with the climate that they were doing around that. And he's going to be great for that, right? Also, what you said about, I have a hard time taking seriously anyone. So this means almost everyone in the public sphere about this. There's so many good, easy critiques to make of Donald Trump, starting with sloppy, rude, arrogant, narcissistic, that when they go to this xenophobic, racist thing, it's just stupid. We should be more bothered by narcissism, right, than we are by people who are just wrong. Right.
But the left right now is a huge part of their agenda is being propped up by this illusion of racism.
Correct.
So that's
correct. Right. But also all of the people that they push forward as heroic, and maybe RFK will be an exception to this just in terms of how he comes off. But Obama was definitely a narcissist. So they don't actually want to take down narcissism.
The president isn't a narcissist.
Correct.
You have
Anybody
to be a narcissist to want to
be correct. Right. Correct. So to me, the scarier things about Trump are the same things that are scary about all other politicians. And I don't actually think he's a racist or a xenophobe or anything against gay people. He's only for whatever makes him look best and whatever makes him right. That's all he cares about. That's it. That's the Donald Trump ethos. Right. So, okay. So back to the Hotez thing. Right. So since he's been on the Joe Rogan podcast, all this thing is about RFK. Hotez won't debate. RFK, and you have all these people dogpiling on $2 million, $5 million, this, that, and the other thing, going, whatever. So everybody, whether they agree with RFK or Joe Rogan or not, now thinks that like this is the UFC fight that we want to see, completely distracting from debates that haven't been settled. Like that debate has really already been settled. The debates that haven't been settled are the ones around climate, the ones around Israel-Palestine type of thing, right? All of those kinds of things are not being like, so we have this narrative that Joe Biden won't debate RFK, Peter Hotez won't debate RFK, they're all afraid of him, and that everybody should be demanding that those two debate him. But those two have the same stance as him on the debates that haven't been settled yet. Right. So like it's taking away any idea that he needs to be debated on these issues that are murkier around him. Right. So what I want to see, like to me, the demand should be, we want to see RFK and Abby Martin debate on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Well, yeah, of course. And we also know that that's
or
not
Roger Waters and RFK debate on the Joe Rogan podcast. Right. And we want to see, the bottom line is everyone's like, this is going to be unfair. Joe Biden is not going to have to debate. No, what's going to happen is RFK is never going to have to debate. They're going to use this idea that no one else will debate him to keep him from being debated on anything he needs debating on.
But even if he is, no one would ask the questions that we would want asked. Like there's such guardrails up. Like let's watch the unfolding, because he's claiming, like he's so publicly and kind of exaggeratedly claiming that like it's podcasts that are going to get him this, because podcasts are where it's free. Let's just watch and see if anyone, Glenn Greenwald claimed the closest, but he pulled back once he said like, oh, well, people think that's anti-Semitic. Let's see if anyone asks him any of the hard questions. I know today we didn't get a chance to go into the Aubrey Charles, which I do think is inviting.
That'll be the next one. Yeah.
Right. Anyway.
All right. So let's do this. We have 63 people in the chat room here. So if anybody has a question that they want to ask or a comment that they want to address, you have just a few minutes now to put that in all capital letters.
Simplicity Revealed says hi from Portugal, and I'm just curious to know what the vibe is like in Portugal.
They have great techno parties there.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I see lots of friends in. Hello, everybody. Ooh, Alien Marcus is here. His name is Alan, but I like to call him Alien Marcus. I've been meaning to reach out to you, Alan, and I shall do so. I see FPV Angel is here. I see, let's see. Jana is holding it down in the room.
Hi, Jana.
Hi, Jana.
One other thing that I want to say while we're waiting for questions is I think that they're waiting to, I think that like right now the jury's out whether he's going to go full Democratic establishment choice or do a duopoly thing. I feel like it's kind of, they're still gathering information to see which way it's going to go.
If he does a duopoly thing, who do you think he'll do the duopoly with?
Tulsi.
Tulsi. So you think it'll be Tulsi?
No question.
What do you think about this
military service background?
So yes, but the one like, so what, just out of curiosity, I agree with you. That seems to be the most likely at this point, but there's such a temptation to leave her in charge of the military, right? To put her as the Department of Defense or Joint Chiefs.
Hits as a VP. That's a requirement at this point.
Do you have any thoughts at all about Cornel West entering the race?
No.
You have no thoughts? Okay, I was just curious about, because that did happen, that he entered and then he switched from People's Party to Green Party, right? And he would maybe be the one person who would have an opposing idea about like the Israel-Palestine kind of scenario, right? But he also is like very, very civil. He calls everyone brother, right? Yeah. Which limits the ability to debate aggressively.
Right.
Right. So it's the first, right. And I appreciate as a human and like, and the role he plays in the community. Like he's been in, he came and talked to my sister's students at the Emerson Prison Initiative, like, and spent lots of time. Like he's a wonderful person. Right. And that's great for that part. But like when you're trying to get to the bottom of, for people who believe that we should have government, when you're trying to get to the bottom of how that should be, it needs to be an aggressive debate, not like, you know, a gentlemanly tennis match. Go ahead.
Well, also notice that all the people who are, and I don't know if Cornell's going to get any like big, you know, like publicity or pushes behind him, but why can't we have actual political leaders with political leadership experience running for presidents? Why is it always people who actually don't have any experience in that realm whatsoever who we're supposed to hand over the highest position?
I think some people like have like, you know, think that that the people who are professional politicians lose touch with real people. So having someone there who has never been a politician is more like able to feel the needs of the people. I don't know how that works when you get into, once you start running. It's like being close to the mirror, like I talked about, right? You can't, it's hard to be, you know, observant in the same way. There's a couple of questions in here asking about how RFK is going to run if there's no primaries. So you can't, like, basically the DNC is just saying there is no primary. The DNC is just, they're saying there's not going to be debates, but all of the states can still hold primaries. And so you have this, they're still going to, right? Like, and you have the Biden campaign offering forward this idea that they can control when states do their primaries, and that they're making South Carolina, because that's Joe Biden's best state, the first primary, whereas Iowa and New Hampshire traditionally do that. But those states are not going along, and that's not really being covered in the mainstream media. So I don't believe in any of this. I don't participate in any of this. But it is going to be interesting to observe as states try to assert their own independence and the rules of their, like the thing that New Hampshire is saying is that their state constitution requires that they do that. And so they're not going to break the rules of their state to go along with some Democratic Party talking points. Like, I don't know how this all works. Like, I know that that the DNC is a corporation and they reserve the right to select their candidates. So that's the obvious tell there that, like, I can't say these things on YouTube because it seems to me there's a new set of rules about elections, but basically that should tell you all you need to know right there. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I don't know if the purpose is just to create like public demand and mayhem. And like whenever they asked him, well, are you going to run in the third party if they don't let you win? He's like, I'm going to win, right? So he's ducking the question. He's not saying, no, I would never do that. So I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know. I mean, this obsession with democracy, this our democracy psyop could lead us to demands for direct democracy in which there isn't any of this stuff where like people like, you know, we didn't get to talk about the confusion over this is one thing I meant to say about the Elon Musk thing, is that I didn't hear the term republic used once. Not that I'm pro-republic either. I'm not for any of this, but there seems to be some confusion over whether the United States is a democracy or a constitutional republic or whatever. I hear him say constitutional framework. I hear him say democracy, our democracy, the framers, all of this stuff. I never hear the term constitutional republic or republic, and it would be interesting to explore why, and that's something you and I will do in a future show, because Dani has to go and get ready for her workshop. Make your pitch, see if there's any last minute joiners. Go for it, girl.
Language of Sovereign Authority webinar today in 27 minutes. I'm doing the same one tomorrow, 5 to 8 p.m. Mountain Time. It will be recorded if you can't make it live. It is unfuckwithable empowerment technology that allows you to hold your sovereign authority permanently, regardless of what is happening in the external world. It's a total game changer. Link is somewhere here, or you can find it on my websites, danikatz.com, quantumlanguaging.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for coming and playing with us on a Sunday morning. Good morning. It's Sunday morning. And for those of you who support us, wordspodcast.locals.com. We have had some recent good shows, more coming soon. I will add the promo code down below for people who are watching the replay of this. Everybody, have a lovely Sunday. Dani, good luck with your workshop.
Thanks, love.
Bye, everyone.